The note wasn't even folded, just sitting there on the dining table, half soaked from a spilled cup of tea and catching the orange glow from the dying fire in the living room. Before I continue, like this video and subscribe to this channel to get more interesting stories like this. It was the kind of note people leave when they're in a rush. Quick handwriting, crooked lines, no care for how the message lands. But this one landed like a hammer between my ribs. We took money from your account. It was needed for the company retreat. Handle Dad. That was it. No apology, no explanation, just a casual theft dressed like an errand, as if I were the family driver being sent to pick up laundry. I stood there in the doorway for a long moment, my hand still on the knob, the cold harmattan wind brushing my back. The house felt strangely hollow, like someone had scooped out the warmth and left only walls and air. Dad sat in the living room, wrapped in that brown checkered blanket he never goes anywhere without. His breathing was light, almost too light, but he was awake. His eyes found mine, tired eyes, the kind that had seen too much without saying half of it. "You're home early," he murmured. I didn't answer right away. The fire was crackling, but everything else in the room seemed to hold its breath. He noticed the paper in my hand. He always notices the things I'm trying to hide. "What happened?" I passed him the note. He read slowly, blinking more than usual. When he finished, he placed the paper on his lap and rubbed his forehead, like the words were still pressing into him. "They didn't even ask," he said softly. I swallowed. "No, they didn't." A long silence followed. One of those uncomfortable ones where everything inside you moves, but nothing outside does. Dad stared at the fire as if it might offer an answer. "You worked hard for that money," he said after a while. "You planned for it, saved for it. And they just—" He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. I wasn't angry. Not yet. Anger is loud and hot and sharp. What I felt was quiet, heavy, steady. The kind of feeling that decides things. The kind that doesn't disappear. I picked up the note again, smoothing the wrinkled edges with my thumb. It smelled faintly of Dad's tea. "They went for that stupid retreat?" I asked. Dad nodded. "Left 3 hours ago. Your brother insisted it was team building. Your sister said she'd explain when they get back." He sighed. "She didn't. Of course she didn't. That would require respect." I folded the note, not carefully, not neatly. Just folded it once and slipped it into my pocket like evidence, which it was. Dad watched me with a worried softness. He could tell when something shifted in my mind. He's the kind of father who knows you even when you don't speak. "What are you thinking?" he asked. I exhaled. "Nothing reckless." He raised a brow. "That's not a real answer." I almost smiled. "No, it isn't." I made stew for him that night, not because I felt particularly domestic, but because I needed something to keep my hands busy. My thoughts were a hive, quiet from the outside, chaotic on the inside. Every chop of the knife felt like punctuation on the same sentence. They stole from you. They left him here. They didn't think twice. They expected silence. When I brought Dad his bowl, he touched my arm gently. "You don't have to do anything drastic," he said. "I know. I mean it. I know." He searched my face. "You're your mother's son. You think before you act. Promise me that won't change." I gave a small nod. I didn't lie, because technically, thinking before acting was exactly what I intended to do. After he slept, I sat in the dim kitchen under the buzzing fluorescent light and stared at the bank alert on my phone. $6.2 million gone. transferred directly by my siblings using Dad's old joint signature privilege. The money wasn't even theirs to touch, and they left him here. Old, sick, barely able to climb the stairs some days. They weren't always like this. Or maybe they were, and I just refused to see it. I opened Dad's drawer, the one where he keeps documents nobody remembers to check except him and me. Inside were old receipts, medical prescriptions, an expired passport, and envelopes filled with bank statements dating back years. And patterns everywhere. Transfers, withdrawals, payments labeled as urgent family needs. Even credits from me, money I had sent for Dad's care, only for portions of it to mysteriously move. The weight inside me shifted again. Not rage, not a shock, just a chilling clarity. This wasn't the first betrayal, just the first they were bold enough to put on paper. I closed the drawer and leaned back in the chair. The hum of the fridge was the only sound. Then, without really deciding to, I said aloud, "They don't know what I know." The room didn't disagree. The next morning, Dad was still asleep when I slipped out. The sun was just rising, pinkish, faint, almost shy. Harmattan made everything crisp, dry, and quiet. My car's windshield fogged lightly as I sat inside, replaying everything in my mind. I drove to the old warehouse district behind the mechanic, not because I needed anything from there, but because that's where his office was. He was a calm man, but also the kind who could dig up information without raising dust. When I walked in, he looked up from his laptop. "It's early," he said. "Something wrong?" "You still handle private audits?" I asked. His expression sharpened. "For you, yes. Why?" I slid the note across his desk. He read it, then glanced at me. "How deep do you want me to go?" "Deep enough to show me everything they've been doing for the past 2 years. He nodded once. "You'll get it." "And Ndidi?" "Yes. Keep it between us." "You think I don't understand that already?" he said with a wry smile. I almost thanked him, but the words caught somewhere in my throat. Instead, I just tapped the desk twice and left. Back home, Dad was awake, sitting on the veranda with his blanket wrapped around him. "You went somewhere," he said. "I needed air." He nodded slowly, eyes narrowing with curiosity. "And what are you planning now?" "A conversation," I said. "With who?" "With everyone." Dad sighed, long and heavy. "Just remember what I told you yesterday." I remember. I wasn't going to shout. I wasn't going to break anything. I wasn't even going to confront them immediately. I was going to wait. Wait for the report. Wait for them to come back. Wait for the right moment to speak in a room where everyone could hear the truth. Revenge isn't about theatrics, not the kind I wanted. It's about balance, about returning what was given, quietly, deliberately, unmistakably. Dad reached over and squeezed my hand. "I trust you," he said. "That's all I can do." I sat beside him, letting the cool morning air settle around us. Birds chirped somewhere in the mango tree above. A keke passed on the street, rattling the gate slightly. Normal sounds, ordinary sounds, the kind that makes betrayal feel even sharper. Because life was moving like nothing had happened. Like my siblings hadn't emptied my account. Like they hadn't abandoned their own father for the sake of team building. A faint bitterness coated my tongue, but underneath it was something steadier. A kind of resolve that felt almost peaceful. Let them enjoy their retreat. Let them take pictures and post quotes about leadership and unity. Let them laugh. They didn't know that every laugh was creating an echo that would eventually reach me, and I would answer. Not too loud, not too dramatic, just unmistakably. As Dad leaned his head back and closed his eyes, I looked at him. Really looked. He deserved better. I deserved better. And somehow, sitting in that quiet morning, everything inside me settled into one simple truth. They had just made the biggest mistake of their lives. And they had no idea what was already coming. For the next 3 days, my family pretended they were ghosts. My phone stayed silent. No missed calls, no guilty-looking texts, nothing. Which told me two things. They didn't expect consequences. They thought I'd just swallow it, like I always did. Quiet, dependable Daniel. Good for lifting, fixing, driving, covering, and understanding. Never the one to raise a voice. Never the one to disrupt the peace. They forgot something. It's always the quiet ones who carry notebooks and memories like ledgers. While Dad slept through the cool evenings, I turned the living room into a command center. I sat at his old wooden desk, the one with scratches from when I used to do homework there, and opened my laptop. Receipts, bank statements, company records, screenshots, voice notes, everything. See, my siblings thought I never paid attention. But when you grow up as the unofficial third parent, you learn things. You overhear things. You store things. And they left me with nothing but time. By the 5th night, Dad woke up while I was typing. "What are you working on so late?" he asked. Voice weak, but curious. "Fixing things," I whispered. He nodded like he knew exactly what that meant. Maybe he did. By the next week, the house had grown too quiet, too still. Dad's medicine finished, and I used the last of my emergency money to restock. The pharmacy owner raised her eyebrows when she saw the total. "You sure you're okay?" she asked. "I will be," I said. On the walk home, something settled in me. Not anger, not spite. Clarity. People like my brother and sister didn't change because you begged. They didn't apologize because you cried. They only understood two things: exposure and accountability. So I gave them both. First, the work. My siblings' company, Skyline Vision Media, looked polished on the outside. Flashy ads, matching polos, team retreats, plenty of laughs on Instagram. But inside, holes everywhere. Creative bookkeeping, they called it. I called it what it was. Mismanagement wrapped in optimism. Over the years, I kept records whenever they asked me to help with one small thing. A transfer here. A signature there. Sometimes they'd use my equipment without returning it. Sometimes they'd send money from my account because it's urgent and they'd repay immediately. They thought I was too soft to notice. They thought wrong. It took me 10 days to make the file. Organized, clear, undeniable. Not vindictive, just factual. Everything I planned was legal, clean, measured. Revenge doesn't always come with broken windows or slashed tires. Sometimes it arrives wearing a suit and carrying a USB drive. The family returned 3 weeks after they left. Their company retreat that my savings graciously sponsored. They walked in laughing, dragging bright suitcases, smelling like hotel perfume and pool chlorine. My sister wore a new woven hat. My brother had a tan he would brag about for months. And then they saw me, at the dining table, laptop open, a stack of documents beside my elbow. My sister froze first. "Daniel, you're home?" Home, as if I had been the one who left. My brother smirked the way he does when he tries to defuse tension with charm. Guy, don't look like that. We brought you something from the resort. You'll like it. He pulled out a small souvenir, a keychain, a $500 keychain, after stealing millions. Interesting. I didn't say a word, just turned my laptop so they could see the screen. It took 3 seconds for the color to drain from their faces. My sister stepped forward slowly, as if approaching a dog that might bite. What is all this? The truth, I said. My brother let out a short laugh. Not a real one. The uncomfortable kind that happens when the ground starts crumbling under your feet. Daniel, be serious. Where did you get? From you, I cut in. From the transfers you made. From the messages you sent. From the receipts you forgot I photographed. From the accountant who still thinks we're close and answers my questions. Their eyes darted to each other. My sister placed a hand on the back of a chair like she needed it to stay upright. Daniel, what do you want? Finally, the real question. I sat back, breathing steadily. For 14 years, you've treated my life like a spare wallet, a free driver, a backup plan. For the last 3 months, I've been taking care of Dad alone while you flew across the country, drinking mocktails and making TikToks. I flipped the printed file toward them. This ends today. My brother swallowed hard. Meaning what? You're going to pay back every naira you took, I said. Not to me, into Dad's care account. And from today, I'm no longer part of the company. Remove my name from anything tied to it. My sister blinked fast, her voice cracking. You can't ruin everything like this. I didn't ruin anything, I said calmly. I'm cleaning it. My brother stepped forward, anger slowly catching up with fear. So you'll expose us? You'll go public? Go legal? Over family? I shook my head. I'm not going to expose you, I said. You're going to expose yourselves. They stared at me. I slid 2 envelopes across the table, one for each of them. Inside were letters addressed to their business partners, drafted clearly, professionally, explaining the misuse of funds attributed to the retreat, the misallocation of investments, and the temporary personal borrowing done without my consent. All they had to do was sign, return the money, put Dad first. If they did those things, the letters stayed sealed. If not, they'd go out automatically. My sister covered her mouth with shaking fingers. My brother whispered, "You planned this." "Yes," I said. Quiet people think deeply. Silence stretched across the room, thick enough to cut. Finally, my sister sank into a chair, defeated. "Daniel, we never meant to hurt you. Intent doesn't erase impact." I didn't say that out loud. I didn't need to. A long minute passed before my brother exhaled and picked up a pen. "What happens after?" he asked softly. "You refund the money. You fix what you broke. And you stop treating me like your safety net." He nodded, the arrogance gone from his face. They both signed. Not because I forced them, but because they finally realized something. I wasn't the weak link. I was the foundation, and they had spent years assuming it would never crack. 2 months later, everything had shifted. Dad now had a stable fund for hospital visits, food, and the small comforts that made his days easier. My siblings still ran their company, but with cleaner books and humbler attitudes. They never asked me for money again. They never tried to involve me in anything shady. And me? I started fresh. Moved into a smaller apartment closer to the city. Got back to saving. Spent evenings reading on the balcony while traffic hummed below. Life breathed differently. One afternoon, while helping Dad organize old photographs, he looked up at me with a knowing smile. You did right, he said. I didn't ask how he knew. Parents always know more than they say. He patted my hand. Peace doesn't come from avoiding storms. It comes from learning where to stand when they hit. I nodded, feeling that land somewhere deep. Revenge wasn't the goal. It never was. The goal was restoration, of dignity, of boundaries, of the version of me that remembered his own worth. And as I sat there flipping through memories with the old man who raised me, I realized, sometimes the strongest thing you can do is simply refuse to be stepped on again. Not loudly, not violently, just firmly, quietly, completely. And when people finally see the version of you who won't bend anymore, that's when everything changes. For them, and for you.